Good morning. I was just watching a video on a podcast, a clip that someone was doing on the black cube, and was showing how it's all over the world and it's always on its point. And they referenced it to the cube on Saturn and all that, right? What no one ever talks about, and it's because we don't have the right perspective, is what it actually is being portrayed there. So it's obviously Saturnalia religion, the religion of Rome. It never died. But the cube sits on its point. Why does it sit on its point? Because and you have BlackRock, right? Blackstone, all these different things that are referencing it. It's because all these different entities, these elites that run everything, still pray to all these old gods, right? And so what you're actually looking at is, so the cube is on its corner because if you've ever seen like pictures of satellites, there's always a hole, right, in the center. And that's because everything is a toroid. At the center of where the two toroids meet, the top and the bottom, is the plane of existence. That's where everything exists, right? You have an upper and then you have a lower that's on the reverse side. So one is a golden ratio going up this way. The other one was a golden ratio or Merkaba spinning the other way, right? That is the balance. And then you have this space that's in between that we call the underworld. And this is why I said perspective is so important. So when we read the Bible and we think that the devil is in the pit of hell, okay, those are the original gods. And that perspective is coming from their offspring, their children. If you look at any of the old stories, you had the old gods and then they had offspring, and all their offspring overthrew those gods. And because they didn't like the way they do things, Lucifer, right? They didn't like the way that they did things, and so they threw them down into the pit of hell. Well, what actually happened is their kids overthrew them down in between the realms. There is an area there, and they are locked down there, and they can't get out. And what is stopping them from getting out? There is a cube in between the tunnel of the worlds or whatever. There's a cube. And that cube that sits at the top is extremely highly magnetic. And so they can't get out because of the cube is there. So they're still praying to the people down in the cube, the old gods, hoping they will come out, overthrow their children, because gods don't ever die, right? Little g gods, right? And so Jesus was the only one that ever came and told us something different than all the other Jesus archetypes that they had. So if it's Mithras or Dionysus, or you can go on through the list. I have videos on here that literally post like 15 different ones that all had the same story as Jesus. Very similar. But Jesus was the only one that told you a different way to look at things and how to escape. And he is the only one that did it differently than everyone else. And when people are getting attacked spiritually, if they call out to Jesus, that is the only thing that typically saves them. The other way that you fight a demon is you show it love. If you show it love, that repels them. So from the perspective, and again, this is why it's so important, when we talk about the beings down under, those are the old gods from the perspective of the new pantheon of gods, right? That is literally what's happening here. And when they took over, they made everything way worse, right? And they've been trapped down there for a very long time. Now, and like I was telling you, perspective, right? So in the same token, if someone was coming down and telling everyone different than everything else, every other religious scripture that had ever been done, would that be pro or anti? It would be anti. It would be the opposite of what the other ones had been, the message that they had given. And so when, again, perspective, who is the Antichrist? The Antichrist is Jesus. the Antichrist is Jesus. Yeah, man. The Antichrist is what goes against the Abrahamic Metatronic beast system. It is the only thing that opposes it. And so, who is the Zion Messiah? Who is their Christ? Their Christ is our people that actually follow Jesus. He is our Antichrist, but he is, as far as the religion goes, and far as how Christianity, they've programmed us to believe that who they see as the Christ is who we think is going to be the Christ, and that's not it. They're not down with Jesus. All right, they have a completely different way to look at things, and Jesus is not their Messiah. Their Messiah is the Antichrist, which is the Antichrist of Jesus, who for them is the actual Christ. I know it's confusing, but it's the perspective. Everything is inverted. And that's what's so hard to try to talk to people and explain things to people, because everything we've been taught our whole life is a inversion of the truth. Why is it inverted? It's inverted because it's on the opposing side. So, as the same, it's a toroid. Everything's a toroid. But so at the center of that toroid, it literally makes the shape of the fish, of like the Jesus symbol fish. But they also call it the Eye of Ra. But that center point where everything meets is where the planes of existence are. But anyways, so the perspective is so important, because when you're reading the Bible, especially everything in the Old Testament, it is 100% from the perspective of their Messiah that doesn't want the old gods back, as far as a system of harmonic balance. But the old gods, it's not like the old gods were great or anything like that. But they weren't anywhere near as bad as their offspring. So when they talk about the beast coming out of the pit, the beast are their parents. All right? That's the best way to put it. Hope you have a great day. Namaste.